your voice carries every single thing about you. So like you were talking about with the sound healing, how they hit those discordant notes and those relate to imbalances in different areas of the body and organs. It's that your voice also carries that. So by doing a voice print, I can find, and it's actually exactly the same as your sound therapy. We actually find, B flat instead of, like a balanced B note, or C sharp instead of a balanced C note. And that all means different things. And so the computer takes them on the back end and tells me what that means, what areas are imbalanced. So that's how we can do a voice print. It works exactly the same as sound therapy.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. I am Bob Nickman. My guest today is Kimberly Mcgeorge. More about that in a second. First, I would like to invite you to visit my website, theexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to all the episodes, see photos of my guests, synopses of the episodes, a little bio on myself, and there is a donate button if you'd like to support the show. You can have access to some extra content, so check that out. Also, I have a YouTube channel where you can hear the episodes, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. Add the with Bob Nickman, and there's an Exploding Human Facebook page. So my guest today is Kimberly Mcgeorge, and this is a pretty wide-ranging interview, but mostly we're going to be talking about frequencies and healing through the use of these new technological apps that she uses to scan a person and know which frequencies in their biofield need some work. And then she can work on that remotely and help you actually help the patient heal themselves. And that's really what this is about, is that we have these abilities, some of them psychic, some of them intuitive, some of them just based on knowing what's going on. And then we talk about some of the more things that are a little harder for me to grasp, like cryptozoology. If you don't know what that is, I didn't either, so stay tuned for that one. And it really is about other dimensions. I hope that you keep an open mind about this. I'm trying to. Then we get into what the future might hold for technology and medical treatments and some of the ethical questions that may arise. So please listen in. This is Kimberly Mcgeorge. I love what you just said before we started recording. I'm as normal and as out there in one body as anybody could be.
Yeah, a lot of people would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And where are you living now? What area are you in?
I am actually a little bit outside of Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. Nice area. And we're going to start. What should we start with? How you became a naturopathic doctor? Let's talk about that. What were the things that led to you becoming interested in that field?
Oh, well, as a lot of healers, it started because I, in my own being, have always kind of had this low-grade depression and high anxiety. And when I became a mother and I had babies and I went through postpartum depression, having babies really took a toll on me, and I became less happy, not because of my children, I love my kids, but because of my health. And so I started my own journey, to feel better for me. That's what started it. Not for anybody else. It started for me. So I started researching and investigating. I became an herbalist first, and started giving a lot of advice. My ex-husband at the time said, if you're going to keep giving Sally's aunts, sisters, brothers, cousins, daughter advice, why don't you make money doing it?
Yeah, I get that.
So that's how it all started. It started, it was all about me. And then people love degrees. So I went on and got more and more and more education. And started to open a practice, and eventually it grew to 4 clinics in Columbus, Ohio. And then eventually, when the internet became big, I jumped online, and the rest is history.
So when you treat people as a naturopath, what is like? Let's say I come to you and I say, "Oh, I'm lethargic and I have a rash that I can't get rid of." I'm just going to pick a couple of things that people have. I'm a little sluggish and depressed sometimes, and I just don't feel vital. I feel like crap, Kimberly.
First of all, you just described 99 out of 100 people, on the globe.
I know I did.
Very real, very good example, very common. But now we have this beautiful technology, that's similar to the MRIs and the ultrasounds that they've allowed us to have finally. And so we do kind of a biofeedback thing and see why you are tired, why you are sick, which is different from why, everybody else is sick and tired. It's very, very individual. So we would just look at, the frequencies that you're putting out and what your body, your emotions, your energy field is saying, and we'd go from there. And the body is beautiful because not only am I not telling you what's wrong with you, you're telling me, but your body and your mind and your cellular memory also knows what order it needs to go to repair and balance everything the fastest. So it's really amazing. I don't do any work anymore. I let you do all the work. I'm just the interpreter. If you do what your body says, you will feel better. Nothing anymore to do with me. Now, of course, my background in education in, naturopathic medicine and herbalism and frequency certainly helps. It makes me a very sharp and quick practitioner, but you are really the healer. You are really, all wisdom, and the path for you to get well. And that's what makes me different from a lot of even alternative practitioners.
I love what you just said. I believe it's a truism that the body never lies. The body cannot lie. People can lie, make up stories, but the body itself will tell you the truth. And if, your knee hurts, there's a reason. It might not be that you bumped your knee, it might be something else, but still, it's not lying. It's giving you some kind of a message. Now, when you say the biofeedback thing, what is that thing? Is it a machine? Is it you?
It used to be a machine. It used to actually be like a 2 foot by 1 foot machine that I would haul around. And a lot of people have done them in chiropractor's office. They hold the copper thing, and they usually use it to sell you certain lines of products. They don't really use it in its fullness. But now we have these beautiful apps. I mean, now we have them on our phones, we have them on our tablets. And so, you can sit next to anyone, anywhere, anytime, and run them within 2 minutes and tell them everything they didn't want to know about themselves. And the beauty of that is there's so much more beneath the physical illness. So it's emotional imbalance, it's mental programming, it's belief systems, and these all have a specific frequency that's consistent. So, we can basically tell you anything and everything. And then the software is able to be programmed. So based on the practitioner's own niche specialty or own, bag of knowledge, we can really go anywhere. What beliefs are hurting your relationship, or we can look at the energy in your home. We can even say, whether an object is positive or negative, because everything has frequency, everything has energy. And as you mentioned, I say frequency doesn't lie, which, energy doesn't lie, and the body doesn't lie.
Well, I love that you were talking about frequency, because I've been really looking into sound healing kinds of things. I'm very interested in it with tuning forks and all that kind of stuff. I've been reading a book about it. And I find it so fascinating that, there's different frequencies that affect different parts of the body, and that some of these frequencies can indicate injuries or trauma or things that have happened in the past. I mean, this stuff is really kind of, I guess it's cutting edge, but it's, and I guess the hard part about it for most people is you can't necessarily see it, and it's subtle. Sometimes when I'll meet somebody, and everyone has this, they'll go, "Oh, I really like this person. Haven't met them, don't know them. There's something about them that I can't see, but I just know that they're a good person, or the exact opposite where you go, ooh, I got to get out of here, you know? And that to me is about frequency. It's not just nonverbal communication, oh, they've got shifty eyes, I got to get out of here. It's something else.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I teach my students and we talk about is I want them to have such a high, multidimensional, expansive, electrical frequency that they can walk in places and the whole place stops. And it happens often to me. I'll walk in a small coffee shop and the whole place goes absolutely silent. Why? Do they know me? No. Am I so hideous? Hopefully not. Am I so amazing? Probably not. What are they feeling? They're feeling my presence of being that feels so unusual. For everything stops until they realize, why the heck am I staring at this woman, and then they go back to their business. So we find as you work on your shadow or your darkness, and you work on your programming and you release a lot of the trauma. And really, a lot of our physical illnesses, mental illnesses, and emotional illnesses are trauma based because we never process and let go completely of our trauma. And so once you can let go of a lot of the trauma from childhood, and maybe you were raped or you were kidnapped or you were broke or you were, we all have our stuff. We all have our victim stories and real stories, but we tend to make them victim stories. But once you can let that go, you just have this beautiful, you can focus on other things. You can focus on fun and exciting things. You don't have to deal with that stuff that most of us drag around every day.
It really is one of the biggest things that comes up in all my interviews now is trauma. Everyone talks about it. And
okay, wow.
Yeah, I think maybe just being alive is traumatic. And and here's just a theory that I have, that no matter what level of trauma that you've had, I think whatever it is, even if it's, what I would call trauma light, it rises to the place where it's bothering you almost at the same level as somebody who's had really strong trauma. I think as human beings, there's a, when you're wounded, whatever the harshest wound is becomes harsh. And some people have harsher wounds and some have less harsh, but the less harsh ones probably feel almost the same to a person as the really severe ones. And I'm not trying to diminish horrible things that have happened to people. I'm just looking at a human trait that I've kind of noticed. It's like the damage is sometimes not as bad as we make it out to be.
Oh,
it's really what I'm saying.
True. I always say trauma to you is trauma to you. So you can take 2 3-year-olds and, one mother screams at you because you did something wrong, you stole a cookie or something. And that person's personality and chemical makeup and DNA can just flip it off. It's not trauma. It's not. It doesn't get started as trauma. But to the other 3-year-old, that can get really rooted and start abandonment and rejection. And I'm horrible. I mean, it's all individual. It's so individual. So I always say trauma to you, whether it's trauma to me or whether I think it's traumatic, it doesn't matter. You're absolutely right. If your nervous system identifies that as trauma, then it is traumatic. Even if everybody else is like, that's stupid, it doesn't matter. It's not stupid to you. So you're absolutely right. We find that.
Oh, good. I'm glad I've been corroborated. I'm going to tell you a story that I just was telling somebody the other day. And this, I would call it barely trauma light. But I remember it really clearly. When I was 3, my sister was born. And you're nodding.
Oh, yeah.
And she was, she was a baby. Of course, you love the baby. You see. So I remember asking my parents multiple times, can I hold her? And they kept saying no. And then finally they said yes. And they sat on either side of me on the couch, put her in my lap. And I remember sort of, how you look at a baby and you kind of go into that, their soul, and you just kind of, and it was my sister and and I started to feel, what that connection was, and had this sort of inner smile and outer smile. And very quickly they took her away. Okay, that's enough. They took her away and they didn't let me hold her again. And I don't know how that went in. I probably, well, I know part of it went in is it something's wrong with me, and also, and it's because of her. So there was a dislike of the my sister, not really knowing her, or some sort of a disconnect there, where I had to figure out a way to feel okay. But and then years later, I remembered it, and as an adult, and I asked my mother about it, and she remembered it. And I said, "Why did you take her away? We thought you would hurt her." And I said, "Why? Why did you think that?" "I don't know." That was the answer. "I don't know."
That's interesting that your mom didn't even mean or didn't really even think about why she even did it. There was no big thought process, no big back motivation to her doing that,
No.
which is interesting too,
I just assume it was 3-year-olds can't be trusted, and maybe he'll poke her eyes out or punch her in the face. I don't know. It was just a fearful person putting their fear into somebody else and projecting that, and then and it went in and it was there. I mean, it's not terrible. And like you say, many 3-year-olds wouldn't even remember that, and it wouldn't be a big thing, and it's not that big of a thing. But at the time, I remember thinking, something's really wrong here. It's like, this is weird. Very light, I mean, it's not anything that's, rules my life in any way, other than that when I think about it, it feels bad.
You're though, I don't know if you've kept that sensitivity, but because you're so intuitive, I think you were a little more sensitive than the average 3-year-old, especially the average male 3-year-old. And I don't know if you've retained that. I'd have to talk to your wife probably, or someone that knows you well, but I actually think you are very, very sensitive in the intuitive gifts. So usually people that are very high level intuitives or have strong intuition gifts, they tend to be more slighted. They're more of the trauma light people, but it's not necessarily light to them. The fact that you remembered it and took it through your adult years says it wasn't that light to you.
Guess not. I mean, I'm 66, so it's only been 63 years I've been carrying it around.
Exactly. So again, I just think it's your sensitive spirit that you actually have. I hope I'm not telling any secrets on you, but I think you're highly sensitive to subtle things like that.
It's probably why I like to shut that down as often as possible.
I'm actually impressed that you are, I don't want to say that old, that sounds bad, but as old as you are, which is older, you're about 50, and you still have such a strong intuition. You must have used it because you haven't buried it or crushed it or, eliminated. It's still very strong in your field. So that's admirable.
I don't even know if I'm tooting my own horn, but my whole life I've felt that I have, when I meet somebody, there's this other thing that I'm doing, this intuitive thing. I don't know what it is, more so than anything else. It's like, what feeling am I getting about this person? And I almost do that first before anything else. And I don't know, I guess everyone does that, but I think they do, but maybe they don't.
We're all intuitive, but the degree that we actively use that for our benefit or for others' benefit is different. And the fact, I just think you found a way to actively use your intuition and keep it kind of going. Most people don't actively use it, or they say, "Oh, that can't be right," and they're like, "Oh, I wish I would have listened to myself." I mean, how many times have you heard people, everybody, even you, maybe, or me, even I still do it. I wish I would have followed that.
I was looking at your I don't know what you would call it, the notes I was given on you, and one of the things was, how can you become more psychic?
Well, number one, how you can become more psychic is when you have a thought. I'll tell you a quick story of how a little girl honored her intuition. One of my friends had a little 8-year-old niece, and they were in a grocery store, and all of a sudden the niece tugged at her aunt, and her aunt had been exposed to some of my teachings, and so she was a little bit more sensitive than the average person. And the little girl said, "We have to go, we have to go, we have to go now." And her aunt's like, "Why?" And she's like, "We have to go, we have to go." And because she was a little bit tuned into the psychic thing, the aunt honored the little girl, which not a lot of people necessarily would have. and left. And 2 minutes later, there's an armed robbery at that grocery store. So this little 8-year-old, honored her intuition, spoke up. And that's another key is you have to be willing to be wrong to be super psychic, because you need that feedback. You need that bounce. Oh, I was right. But if we don't speak it, if we get an intuition like that 8-year-old does for our brother, sister, mother, friend, whatever, and we don't speak it, we never get the affirmation that we were right, that we are intuitive, that we do read energy, because energy knows no time or distance. That's how we're talking right now. So if I always say this, if you could know anything, anywhere, anytime about anyone, wouldn't you want to? And everybody's like, of course, or anything. But we can. We are wired to read frequencies, and there's frequencies zinging by you and I by the millions right now, including, guess what? One of our favorites, the frequency of money. So what makes the difference to the people that can tune into these frequencies and make it a part of their world and use this information, and the people that can't? You have to be willing to be wrong. You have to be willing to say, Mom, I don't think you should do this. This feels, even if you want to present it softly, this feels bad to me. People tend to be okay with feelings rather than you just saying, I know you shouldn't do this. You don't have to be like, a seer and be the voice of doom, but you have to be willing to be wrong. And that's how I developed and realized how psychic I was, is in college, people started coming to me and, asking me all these questions. Should I, is my boyfriend cheating? Am I going to get engaged? What should I do about this? And because I was away from my very religious home, I was willing to be wrong, and I was willing to speak it. And so as I got that information, 9 out of 10, well, maybe 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, you get better. The more you do something, you get better at reading energy. So you have to practice, just like anything else. You don't become, even the best psychics usually weren't instantly 99% accurate or whatever,
I mean, my wife is very intuitive, and more so than me by a lot, actually. And she'll say stuff, and I mean, it's, the percentages are so high. She's got to, she's tuned into that. And it's really, an amazing thing. And it's also can be a little bit troubling for her when she's wrong, and two, I don't want to know this. Sometimes, like, I don't want to know that. That's like, so there's some of that. It'd be nice to have a switch. I guess you can have a switch, right? You can switch it on.
Oh, you can have a switch. I just don't think it benefits you to have a switch. I don't know why you wouldn't want to be able to make life decisions and relationship decisions and career decisions on accurate information than blind information.
Sold. You sold me on that one. So much for me and my theory on that one. I was very fascinated because it's a word I've never heard that was also in your bio here. What is cryptozoology? I have no idea. I've never heard it. I don't know what it means. I know what cryptocurrency is. I know what a crypt is. I don't know what cryptozoology is.
Well, cryptozoology is the study of mythical creatures like the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Dogmen, Yeti, all those about, the snow abominable, I can't say that word, snowmen, all the legendary Loch Ness monster, all the legendary creatures.
But they're mythical.
Okay.
And now you're shaking your head no, that they're not mythical. So why are they so pervasive and so powerful in our culture? And yet I don't have one in my backyard in a cage. I'd love to have a big Yeti in my backyard.
But so you need to come over to my house and I will help you see them, because they're fourth dimensional beings. Some of them are third dimensional beings, so they're solid. But a lot of them are outside this dimension and they lurk around. So that's why they kind of appear and people see them and then they don't, because they're in the dimension right above ours. But I have plenty of pictures and I can show anyone how to see them. Plus, when you're out in the woods at night and you're hearing them, it's a little hard. Again, I like to show and tell, I don't expect anyone to believe me. I've always have an open invitation to come, hang out with me, and we'll see what we discover, kind of like a paranormal investigation, but a cryptozoology investigation.
The point that these are things in from another dimension, it's so unprovable to me that, and I'm not even trying to be difficult, because I'm not, because I want to believe that there's other dimensions, and that does make sense. If I can see a two dimensions stuff written on a piece of paper, and then now if there was a live being in that second dimension, they might not see me because I'm in a third
Exactly.
dimension. So
That's
I get that. So is there another dimension that I can't see? Is it possible?
Well, a lot of people believe easily in heaven, but where's heaven? Where's heaven? Can I go to heaven?
Yeah, they do.
Is not heaven purportedly in another dimension? Is not hell purportedly, if there is a hell? I don't personally believe in hell. But if there is a hell, is it hell purportedly in another dimension?
Exactly.
How many millions of people right now? We'd like to think there's millions listening to this. How many millions of people listening to this? I'll just give you a little bit of positive energy. I mean, in those two things, millions of people, billions of people probably believe in those two things. And they are just as much in another dimension, unprovable-ish. Although I do have a picture from NASA of heaven that I just sent my dad that I could send you. But that's all.
Oh, please. You have to send me that.
To
I can't wait to see it.
But it's the same thing to me. So, the whole story, especially in Europe, the fairies, the fae, they call them the little folk. My daughter went to Western North Carolina, and they actually have tunnels that are really, really tiny, of like 6, 7, 8 inches, that run under her college. What is running, have built these elaborate tunnels. They call them the little folk. So there's a lot of archaeology evidence that either is manufactured or that we're not allowed to see. There's a lot of history that's buried and changed and altered. Why? And then we say why, or I say why. And I think it's because it's that magical part of ourself that if you thought you were this powerful, magical being that could know anything and do anything and had paranormal or psychic abilities, who's going to be able to control you? Is the government? No, you're going to be able to see through anything, see through any scam, see through the horrible mainstream media, as we're calling it, nowadays. You're going to be able to know truth. And if you are a person that can discern truth, we'll even give you 90% of the time, you're going to have a leg up over most people in life in all areas. You'll know who to date, who not to date, what job to take, who to be friends with, who not to be friends with, what to invest in, what not to invest in. I mean, where can you go wrong? So when we first come on this planet, everything magical is always repressed. It's a story. It's a fairy tale story. You're not psychic. Psychics are scams. All of this is always the magic of our being, of who we are, as fire creation beings, is repressed.
Well, yes, I think it's repressed partly because of what you're talking about as control, but the other part is there's some kind of a fear of it, and not sure why people are so afraid of it in themselves, that they don't want to take a minute to just sort of, because the children are not repressed in that area. They're allowed to experience fairies and talking to trees and do these sort of magical things, and they're encouraged to dress up like magical creatures and do all this stuff. And then it becomes this thing that's, leave that alone. That's from childhood. It's not practical, and it's just silly. And I don't know what it is about the humans that is the case. Is it the idea that we're it just isn't practical for survival tool, as a survival tool, perceived that way, or is it not really important?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a whole lot of fun. So, well, and I think religion that.
I agree. I think it's amazing. I love the fanciful flights. That's something I enjoy.
A lot of religion too has made it evil or dark. I grew up in a home where my dad was a pastor, and I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've been exorcised, and my gifts.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Try to be exorcised out of me. And so I think I love that you brought in the fear aspect. There is a fear, and there always has been. the whole witch trials, all throughout history, the sorcerers and the wizards and the, wise women have always been kind of isolated and feared, kind of honored and feared. When you were in an emergency and no one else could help you, they're sneaking a path to your back door, but they're not going to openly, herald your praises. And even nowadays, with all the acceptance of paranormal, with ghost hunters and, ghost adventures and all the success of these paranormal shows. I mean, I live in a very small backwoods type town. And when I moved in here, I've been, I hate to say persecuted, but I've been harassed because of who I am. They know what I do. And there's still that stigma, even in small American towns, which might shock some people, of anyone that's different.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you. And yeah, that does happen. When you think, and I was thinking about this on a bigger level, something you can't see, you can see the result of it, which is love, and kind of the highest way of being, I think, if you're in love and compassion. And when you think about historically the people that have espoused love as the center of a way of living and have lived it from Jesus on, and probably before, they get killed, they get marginalized, it's interesting. Everyone says they want love, but then when you actually see people that do that, they're a threat to a lot, not to everyone, of course. There's plenty of people that go, what a wonderful human being that is. But there are people that go, we got to get rid of that. We can't take that. That's not going to work.
That's a good point.
Yeah. That's a little mini lecture in the middle of our talk. So what are you doing mostly these days in terms of your work?
I do what I call mini scans and scans, but they're very comprehensive. They're not just, physical imbalances. They are a lot of things come up: emotional, mental, metaphysical, spiritual. So I kind of am a lot more holistic than I used to be when I used to, practice as a naturopathic doctor. And I've gotten into writing programming, software programming for these apps. And I'm a patent holder on a PEMF device, which is pulsed electromagnetic frequency, which is really popular, which, kind of heals the physical body. And I've written frequency programs for that. So I'm really frequency based, but I still teach psychic classes. I teach how to read auras. I teach classes in consciousness. And I still teach about, the body and how to heal the body, how to balance the nervous system. Everybody's nervous systems that I look at is screaming on. Everybody's in this hyper alert mode, functioning day to day, even when they don't think they are. And so, we really work a lot on releasing trauma, like we talked about, and turning the nervous system off. I write. I do a lot of things. I do radio shows.
So when you say you do a scan,
yeah.
Let's say, I guess people can contact you, I'm sure, through, you do things on Zoom. You can still do that, I would imagine.
We don't even do it on Zoom. It's all, again, if we were on the phone, we wouldn't be seeing each other. We'd just be talking. Our voice is carrying over time and space. Energy knows no time and space. So I can key into your energy signature and your frequencies with a picture. I mean, like I read you with a picture or a voice print, because your voice, have you ever listened to people's voices, and you, especially being in like radio and even when you're a comic, like you had to be sensitive. You're a communicator too. That's one of your abilities, obviously, but I also see it in your aura. But the tone of people's voice. So your voice carries every single thing about you. So like you were talking about with the sound healing, how they hit those discordant notes and those relate to imbalances in different areas of the body and organs. It's that your voice also carries that. So by doing a voice print, I can find, and it's actually exactly the same as your sound therapy. We actually find, B flat instead of, like a balanced B note, or C sharp instead of a balanced C note. And that all means different things. And so the computer takes it on the back end and tells me what that means, what areas are imbalanced. So that's how we can do a voice print. It works exactly the same as sound therapy.
So you must have seen some amazing results in people over the years that were that they were like, how did that happen?
One of my favorite stories is I was on the playground with my kids, and one of my clients called me up. She's an older woman, and it was when I lived in Ohio. Her daughter lived in Georgia, and she said, "You're going to fix my daughter." And I said, "Whoa, this is not Jesus you're speaking to. Don't put that on me." And I said, "What's going on with her?" And she said, in a week, she's going to Pennsylvania, and they don't do this a lot anymore. So this will tell you how crazy and serious it was. And they are going to cut her open for exploratory. This was like 8 years ago, but still, that seems really harsh to cut someone open for exploratory surgery. Like, they really have to be in the dark to do that. Like, that's dark stuff, in my opinion. I don't think they need to do that anymore. They have to be really. But anyway, she was dying. She was a young woman in her 30s. She had 2 kids and a husband. And at the time, I was actually using a machine called a biomeridian device. It was an actual machine, not an app on the phone, but it was like those biofeedback machines they have in the chiropractors. And I said, well, no promises, but bring her up here and I'll try. So I spent 6 hours with her one day, 2 hours with her the other day. She went home, she got well, and she never, ever, ever had any serious problems again. And there were a lot of things out of balance, but it was mainly what we discovered was she had this weird kink in her intestines. And then she went to the doctor and it was verified and they got it taken care of, but without the exploratory surgery. But, people are like, how did you know that? Because of your psychic abilities. It wasn't because of my psychic abilities. It was because her body, obviously it's her body. Her body knew that in this really weird place in her intestines, she had this weird kink, which was creating all kinds of havoc with, absorption and breaking down food and elimination, you can imagine. And they just hadn't done the right test or seen the right angle to find it. But her body still knew. Your body knows 100% of everything, like everything. The things that you can't remember, your body still holds that memory. I mean, water, or mostly water, and water has an amazing, ability to hold memory. So that was one of my most dramatic stories, that I could help this poor woman who was about to be cut open. But she helped, not me. It was just, I was just the person, the interpreter. It's really, she helped herself.
I love what you just said about water having memory. Never thought of it that way. I'm a little bit at a loss for words on it, because it makes complete sense to me. And yet it's a brand new idea. I mean, I think there's memory in a lot of things. I know, cellular memory and muscle memory, and we have words for all that. But when I think about memory just in water, it makes complete sense in terms of the body.
Well, like your homeopathic device, bottle is water or alcohol. And all it is frequency. So it holds that frequency suspended. It holds the memory of the frequency that they programmed suspended in the water or alcohol. So a homeopathic remedy is a memory. It's a memory of programming.
Right. What do they call it? Succussion? Is that what it's called?
Although.
Yeah. So they take the thing and then reduce it down to basically a memory.
But that's an example of an acceptable example of that.
If I wanted to get a reading from you, a scan, I guess you would call it, I would call you up and we could do it on the phone?
You would go to my website, you would order it, pay for it, and then I'll send you an audio file, or sometimes I type them up. It depends on my mood. And that's it. And then you get to ask me questions. I never talk to you. I don't even do very many one-on-ones anymore because I'm so busy doing other things and I don't need to. We've just refined this and we just have thousands of accurate we don't need to. We don't need to spend that. I know it sounds bad. I do live events, so I do see people, but that's more of a teaching thing. So it's not that I won't see people. Yeah. And I do see occasionally I'll do a one-on-one, but it's not necessary. I don't want people, my one-on-ones are really expensive, and I don't want people to waste their money. If I can give them more information or the same information for $77 or, $177 versus hundreds or thousands, then I'm going to do that. I love that, I give them, you'll have your scan back in 7 to 10 days and they can listen to it at their leisure, and they can listen to it 8 times or 20 times or whatever, and they can ask questions. It just works really, really well. Yeah, and med beds are coming. I don't know if you've heard the term med bed, but now they're talking about bringing out the med beds, which are supposed to be released within the next couple of years.
Are you saying the word med bed?
Med bed.
MEDBED.
Yes.
So it's a medical bed of some kind.
They're in all the military bases right now. And there's certain people, I'll mention any names, I'm not really supposed to talk about it, that have seen them or been in them and experienced them. And they are in some of the teaching hospitals, only accessible, unfortunately, right now for either studies or if you're rich and famous, you know what a med bed is. Every single celebrity, I guarantee you, knows what a med bed is. Every single politician knows what a med bed is.
What is it? Tell me what it is. I don't want to have to get famous just to go in one.
It's basically similar to this. They use frequencies. They use technology that isn't common knowledge, but that is to certain groups. So you get in a med bed, and instead of having surgeons work on you or nurses come in, you lay there for 6 hours, you get out and your tissues restored, your burns are healed, your virus is gone, whatever your thing is. They use nanotechnology, nanobots. I mean, a lot of the programs, sci-fi programs, have talked about. Travelers is a show that talked about healing with nanobots. So that's what the med beds are about, the advanced medical technology.
Is this, would this be considered conspiracy theory, or would this be considered, it's a real deal?
No, this is something that it will be everywhere within maybe in a year or two, along with, I'll make another prediction. Within the next 2 years, there'll be a replicator in every home. I would like a cherry Coke. Boom. There's a cherry Coke. I would like a steak potato. But think, how far off am I? Do we have 3D? What's a 3D printer? What's a 3D printer? How close is a replicate? Not too far off. So it's not like so crazy.
Asking for something and having it being manufactured right there is not what I would consider a healthy activity for human beings to get what they want right when they want it. More selfishness? We can't have that.
But you'll see it.
Okay. Well, I hope that they work and they help people. That would be amazing. I'm going to go look that up. That's my next venture after we finish. Now, do you like the idea of them, or is there something about them that seems diabolical to you?
Here's where you're intuitive. Like nobody else would ask that question. So I'm not a super fan of med beds, because you get in a med bed, you better trust the person running that med bed, and you better trust their intentions, because med beds are also used already nefariously to correct bad celebrity programming, let's say, as in different kinds of mind control drugs, mind wiping. I mean, all technology, including this technology that I use, can be used for good or harm. We talk about the harmfulness of EMFs and 5G and these higher pulse, frequencies that are negative. But frequency can also be used to heal. So it's just partly the strength, partly how it's applied, and partly the motivation of the person doing it. So yeah, I'm a little worried about giving the medical profession carte blanche, getting in a med bed, or giving the government clinics carte blanche time. Once you get in a med bed, you're not going to get out on your own. They're going to have to let you out. So that's a little, kind of like going under anesthesia. If you go under anesthesia, you have to completely trust that the person is doing only what they say they're doing. They're not putting anything in. They're not taking anything out you didn't get permission to. And, go and read all the medical malpractice, and you'll see that there are not everybody's ethical in the world, and, things happen.
I've noticed that. Are we evolving faster technologically than we are spiritually and morally? That's really the question. And the answer is yes, we are. But when or will human beings ever evolve that way, the way we're evolving in these other ways that are sort of concrete and sort of, quantifiable? Will we evolve as a species in a way that where kindness, empathy, compassion become the primary focus, and not greed, selfishness, power? Those are really, that's really kind of the question on all this stuff. And that's, it's a morality question in a sense. And it's also a practical sense of what are we doing to our species, getting ahead of ourselves in some ways technologically when we're not equipped to handle it. Then again, you and I are just having a great day. That's all. That's all you can do. So if people want to contact you, let's give the folks that are listening your website. I mean, obviously, let's not make them work for it, because why would somebody want to work for something worthwhile when it can be handed to them by you?
Okay, that's true. So my website is secrettoeverything.com.
Secrettoeverything.com. I'm going to go there. I am so happy to talk to you today. What a great conversation. I didn't know where this was going to go, who you are.
I think our conversation, if people take it, there's some things to think about and meditate on and kind of see where they're at with some things in their own life, because technology is coming like a speeding bullet train.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Kimberly. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun. Great insight, great conversation. Thank you.
Much appreciation for you guys listening in to The Exploding Human. Please visit the website, theexplodinghuman.com. You can get lots of information there. And if you would like to hit the donate button and support the show, you will have access to some extra content. Also, there's a YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, Add with Bob Nickman. There's a Facebook page. And I want to thank Kimberly Mcgeorge for her wonderful talk today. Very mind expanding. Yes. Thank you so much, Kimberly. And you folks have a great day. Bye.